So Roseanne came back to TV, got huge ratings. Now this is a big story because the character Roseanne plays on the show is a Trump supporter. Roseanne Barr herself is a Trump supporter, and the people tuning in, a lot of the people watching, it was in these heavily red areas that went very pro-Trump during the election. So this is a big story. Now, I want to talk about it because I feel like the reason why Roseanne Barr's character on the show says she supports Trump, very different than the reasons that Roseanne Barr herself supports Trump. So the character on the show, there's this perception that Trump is for middle America, for blue collar workers and everyman. You know, there's debate over whether that's true or not, but that's at least the perception. Now, that's not why Roseanne Barr, that's not the main reason why Roseanne Barr herself supports Trump. Now, I watched Roseanne Barr and Joe Rogan, and it's a long talk. It's an interesting talk, and I think there's one clip I'll show right now, and it really explains exactly why Roseanne Barr in particular supports Trump, but I think there's a large percentage of Trump supporters, not the majority, but there is a large percentage that can be very influential in swing elections that I think share her mentality and share her mindset.
But you know what? Here's the thing. We're all poisoned. Bingo. It's over. Everything's fucking rotten, poison. Fucking, it's all dead. It's dead as a fucking doornail and two motherfuckers.
It's not.
It's time
it's
to
not
let the
yet,
hope
though.
thing go.
Really?
We're serious.
Wow.
It's
See,
time to get real and do what fucking needs to be done.
So in this long talk, Roseanne Barr talked about capitalism and corporations and conspiracy theories and the environment and sustainability. Now, Trump doesn't talk about green energy, he doesn't talk about climate change. So how do you have someone who cares so much about the environment and sustainability and has been involved with the Green Party like Roseanne? How does she support Trump? How do you square that? It seems like a paradox. How you square it is if you believe, like it seems Roseanne does, that capitalism and corporate greed and the status quo, the establishment that's in power right now, is so out of control, and they're eating up resources of the planet, and they're causing irreparable harm to the planet. And if it doesn't stop, if we don't have radical systemic change rapidly, the entire planet is doomed. If you believe that, then you will vote. You'll become a single issue voter. And the only thing how you're gonna see the world is you're gonna say there's the establishment, the status quo that wants to keep things the way they are in a way that I think is unsustainable and is gonna destroy the planet, or there's anybody who's gonna be damaging to the status quo. And there's 4 different ways that Trump, people could perceive him as being bad for the status quo. Now, one way is that Trump is actually an anti-establishment person, and he's gonna go in and put in better anti-establishment policies. He's gonna fire people who are part of the establishment. That's one mindset. Another mindset is Trump's so incompetent that he's gonna go in, the country's gonna start to fall apart, and in this kind of heightened state where things are falling apart, there's gonna be a potential for a revolution to come in and us to restructure the government. There's the third, that Trump is so, you could say, crass, unpopular, that when Trump comes in, there's going to be a backlash against the government, and finally people are going to get angry and get motivated, and again, in that state of anger, there's going to be the potential for revolution. So there's all these different ways that people can say that Trump would weaken the status quo. So they might not agree with Trump on most issues or any issues, but they are revolutionary. This is the revolutionary vote. Now, if you look at the revolutionary vote, who won the revolutionary vote? I think Trump probably got 100% of the revolutionary vote. And I think Trump probably motivated people to come out who want revolution, want serious radical change. He probably motivated people to come out that stayed home in when Romney and Obama had their election. So I think sometimes there's this kind of working class, blue collar, middle America. There's that vote that's very important. The Rust Belt. There's that, but people don't talk about the anti-establishment radical vote that I think Trump probably won in a surprising way. And this isn't just Roseanne Barr. Susan Sarandon, Jimmy Dore, who's a pretty big part of the Young Turks, is the biggest political channel ever, and a lot of people who supported Bernie Sanders, they then flipped. Not the majority of them, but I think it was about 1 in 10 flipped and voted for Trump. So again, if Trump is far right and Bernie is far left, how could someone switch all the way over? It doesn't seem to make any sense. But I think if you start viewing the world in this black and white way of establishment versus anti-establishment, and that's the dividing line, I think it does make more sense. And if you view the world in this way, you can vote very counterintuitively. You can look at a lot of things that are debated. Should the tax rate be 27% or 31%? And people who view the world this way, they can say, well, I don't care. It doesn't matter. That's not what's important. What's important is real systemic change, whether it's 31% or 27%. Either it doesn't matter, or even you can say, well, having a lower tax rate, 27%, and more redistribution of income, that's actually better for the world. But long term, it's worse because it's better and that'll make people more docile, less likely to revolt. So you can actually have this kind of perverse way of looking at things where you actually want policies that are worse because you think that when someone's a little more stable and more of a smooth talker and better able to charm people and better able to put band-aids over problems and better able to keep the status quo going, that's worse than someone who's a worse president, because the worst president, people are then going to be able to see more effectively just how rotten and unfair the system is. So people do sometimes talk about anti-establishment anger and how a lot of people that voted for Trump, they just wanted to thumb their nose at the establishment, kind of send a message. What I don't think people talk about as much is there's still radicals that exist. Radicals have existed for a long time in America, people who want to overthrow the system. And just because they don't really have a candidate right now, people sometimes forget that they exist, but they do. They exist, they vote, they're active, and I think people sometimes underestimate the amount that would see Trump as, again, even if Trump is counterintuitive to a lot, or antithetical to a lot of their beliefs, they would see him as a viable candidate. And I think this is why Russia did so much campaigning for Trump and was so pro-Trump. Now, some people say it's because Putin has dirt on Trump and therefore he wanted Trump in power so he could blackmail Trump to do all these things for Russia. I don't know about that. Or they think, well, Trump is just going to be better for us policy-wise. We'll be able to do things in Ukraine and in Eastern Europe, and Trump's going to be better than Hillary policy-wise. That may be true, but what I think is undeniably true is Russia saw Trump as a way to create division in the United States, create polarization, distrust, and maybe even a revolution. And I think that Russia would see any kind of revolution or serious overthrow of the U.S. government as a major win for them. So in a way, the same radicals that in America that want to see change and overthrowing the system, I think the same people in Russia who for very different reasons want to see this overthrow and this change. That's what's fueling this kind of Trump support. And last thing I'll say, addressing the criticism that the show Rosseane is now pro-Trump, I don't think that's fair. I think it has a character on it who's pro-Trump, but it's much more about polarization and different people having very different beliefs, even within the same family, and trying to make it work and overcome these beliefs. I think that just because Rosseane herself is very pro-Trump, there's lots of other people involved in the show, and the executive producer, Whitney Cummings, I don't think she's pro-Trump at all, but I do think she did a movie recently called The Female Brain that said some things that weren't the most politically correct. And her show Two Broke Girls has been attacked by a lot of people for being racist, sexist, offensive, all that. So I think that Whitney Cummings, I don't think she's pro-Trump, but I also don't think she would take the position that Trump supporters are so vile and so deplorable that they shouldn't be given a platform. We shouldn't have any sense of balance between them. I think that she wouldn't buy into those things, even if her own personal belief, she's not pro-Trump at all. So I think it was kind of a combination of Rosseane's very, very pro-Trump views and then some other people involved in the show, like Whitney Cummings, who probably doesn't believe that Trump's views are so offensive they shouldn't even ever be given the light of day.